Okay, IED, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be finishing part 3 of activity 1.3.3, constraining a sketch. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the spot where we left off last time. We had applied we had applied geometric constraints to a sketch, and we had made it all the way towards adding a circle based off of this line tangent on the bottom. So what we need to do here is we're going to start talking about adding what are called dimensional constraints. And what a dimensional constraint is it will force the dimension or the length of the object or the line that you're talking about to be in a specific location, and it won't move from that length or that distance. So, like for example, it wants us to go ahead and add dimensional constraints to this shape. And if you look down at the bottom, if we add a dimensional constraint to the left and the right, the far left and right of the object, that's going to set that to be 100 millimeters all the way across. If I were to set this to be 15, that's going to make this 15 millimeters. If I were to set this as 15, that would make this 15 millimeters. And that's going to lock this particular line segment into a distance that is mandated by the 15 millimeters here and the 15 millimeters here. If I were to try to add a dimension constraint in this spot, it would probably over constrain the sketch, especially if I added a dimension that doesn't actually fit up. So notice, instead of having to use the Pythagorean theorem and try to figure out how long that line is, the smart big brain way to do this would be to just take the 15 millimeters and the 15 millimeters of the vertical lines and then use those two vertical lines to lock this into place. So we're going to do this. We're going to actually add our dimensional constraints to this, and then we're going to try to keep moving on. So I'm going to go ahead and throw my dimensional constraints up there if I can find them. Oh, here we go. This is where we left off last time. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the top view, and we're going to make sure that we go back into our sketch. So we're going to right click or double tap with the Chromebook, and we're going to edit our sketch. We're going to move back in here. We should have all of our constraints. I'm going to click show constraints to make sure that they do exist. Yep, there is a bunch of them. And then I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that so that we can hide our constraints that are showing here, that we're showing. And what we're going to do is we're going to add dimensional constraints that are, let's see, they want us to have 20 millimeters across. So I'm going to use the dimensional constraint, which is this guy right here. And I'm going to click on the right side and the left side. And then I'm going to make this, uh-oh, did I change this to millimeters? I thought I changed it to millimeters. Maybe I did not. That was not very smart of me. So it told us to actually measure these out in millimeters. So we can do that change. I'm going to go ahead and click here, and this 0.837, we'll go ahead and change it out. So workspace units are default millimeter, and I'll hit the check mark, and we should be good to go there now. I'm going to go back into the sketch, and there we go, 21.57. Well, I don't want 21.57. I want 20 millimeters on the dot. And whenever I do that, it's going to shrink this size down to be 20 millimeters. And notice that these lines on the left and the right side are also now black instead of blue. That means that these dimensions are now going to be locked in place. So from there, we can add a couple more dimensions. So I'm going to click the dimension button and then the top and the bottom. And I'm going to set this dimension to 45 millimeters, and it should shrink that down. Okay, I'm then going to, oh, it looks like I almost completely lost my other guy. Look at this poor guy, he's right here. So I'm going to click on this length and this length from just the dot. I barely even had enough room left on that one. And I'm going to click, and I need that to be 15 millimeters. So when I click on that, my shape should change. There we go. It's looking a bit more like normal. If your numbers start going out to weird places, you can get out of dimension mode and you can just kind of pull them in by clicking and dragging. You can drag these numbers, you can drag these arrows by clicking on the number. You can move it around this way. And let's see here. I'm going to add another dimension, and we want to go top, bottom, and we want this one to be 15 as well too. So I'm going to type 15, enter, and that's going to bring those up. Okay, so I still have the dimensional constraint. Let's see, we need to add one more. It looks like my poor little circle over here needs to shrink down a little bit. So I'm going to put a dimensional constraint on my circle, and I'm going to make sure that that circle, let's see if I can, from center to end, there we go. Hey, come on now, be nice. Click dimension, center of the circle, edge of the circle. We should be able to get a dimension value out of this. Oh, there we go. Okay, if you click on the outside of the circle just once, it seems to work. So I'm going to click on this, and we don't want it to be 7 millimeters. Looks like we only want it to be a diameter of 5 millimeters. That should shrink it down. There we go. It seems to fit. And the bottom, from left to right, I'm going to go dimension, and I'm going to click the left side. I'm going to click the right side. Move down here, and it's close, but I want it to be exactly 100 on the dot. So I'm going to hit enter, and I should have a dimension that's 100 on the side. These are adding dimensional constraints, and when avoidable, you should, like, if you can use a geometric constraint, I would always prefer a geometric constraint over a dimensional constraint, because a dimensional constraint will hard set a line into a specific point. So that makes your life a little bit more interesting if you're going to add dimensional constraints. You should really only add those in if you're really wanting to lock this shape down and not want to do anything else. So if I were to like try to click on any of these points or lines, I'm going to end up not being able to click and move them around, even if I am in sketch mode. So most of these are now locked in place. They're not going anywhere. So if I try to move them, it's like, nah, bro, it's not going to happen. Okay, and then the next part, let's see here. Let's see, a couple of ways. It talks a little bit about design intent on the next part. And um, what they want you to do there is watch the video on the design intent, and it kind of shows you what happens whenever you change around the dimensions on the specific parts. Like if you change the 100 to 125, sometimes it works the way you want it to, sometimes it doesn't. So if you change these dimensions, it changes the way that the object is actually shaped. So for 31, it says, predict the behavior of your sketch if you were to change the base dimension from 100 millimeters to 125 millimeters. So what I would want y'all to do is I want you to double tap this, and I want you to change the dimension from 100 to 125, and then predict what it would do, and then actually change it, and then tell me whether or not your position was correct or not. After that, see what happens if you change the vertical overall dimension from 45 millimeters to 60 millimeters. So this is at 45. What happens if you double tap this and you change that number and you change it to 60 millimeters, or if you change it to 80 millimeters? Once you get this set up, go ahead and try putting in those numbers and seeing what actually happens. Okay, and then number 34 says, assume the design intent for the sketch includes behavior such that when the overall vertical dimension is adjusted, only the length of the rectangular tab up top is affected. That is, lines 5 and line 7 get longer, but everything else remains its original position. And then they want you to revise your sketch, so you're going to have to change around your dimensional constraints to modify that, to reflect that design intent. So the way that we have it right now, we have a hard set dimensional constraint for 15 millimeters up on top. We have a hard set 15 millimeter dimensional constraint on the bottom, and we have a 45 dimensional millimeter constraint up here. And they want it to be, whenever you change the height to this, that the thing that changes is the 15 millimeters that happens here. And you could actually kind of see what happened before, but I want you guys to actually try this out. I'm not gonna type in the things for you guys. You've got the sketch working right now. I want you to be able to play around with it and actually see what happens. Okay. Um, so it looks like what you're going to be submitting is you're going to be submitting your responses to the sketches that we had made last time. So you're going to be writing out your response to 31, your response to 32, your response to 33. These can all just be typed, so you don't actually have to include like a sketch or anything. Let's see, and then if you revise the sketch, um, change the overall vertical height of your sketch from 45 millimeters to 100 millimeters. Finish the sketch and extrude the profile 5 millimeters thick, omitting these circles to create holes. Does your final part resemble the part shown in the isometric view below? If not, revise your sketch until you have a fully constrained sketch that aligns with the design intent. And the design intent in this case is to have it look like This is the design intent. And if you change around the number for the total height, this handle down on the bottom stays the same, but this vertical height up on top is what ends up changing. So you're going to have to change your dimensional constraints to ensure that this happens. Then whenever you do, you're going to take that and you're going to move it over. I think the only thing that I didn't do that I should have done last time is they talked about taking the hole that we had created and they want you to mirror it over to the other side. So let me go ahead and do that real quick and then we'll call it a done deal for part 3. So I got the circle over here and I want to try to mirror it over to the other side. What I can do is there's a button up here that's the mirror command. So I can hit the mirror button and it says select a mirror line. I'm going to use the construction line that's in the middle between the two. And then it says select the entity that's going to be mirrored. I'm going to select this and it automatically puts the circle on the other side of the sketch. So now you should have a handle with holes on both sides. And notice that it kept the same constraints on both sides when you use the mirror command. So not only did it mirror the actual object, the actual sketch itself, but it also mirrored the constraints on the sketch itself, which is really, really important. I'm going to click the green check mark. Looks like everything's done. Make sure that you change it around to where you can increase the height on this. And that's what you're going to turn into me. You're going to turn into me a picture of that file. And you can either in the comments type out what your responses are, or you can just attach it as a file or attach text to it. It's kind of whatever you want to do, however you want to turn it in. So y'all have a great day, and I will talk at you guys later.